make it as a habit. Yeah, you have to follow that. Okay? I wish you all the best and a good talk from Varun. Varun, what I suggest is that you need a technology and they all say it, but you need to inspire them with your personal experiences. Which have it's a great honor to state an young entrepreneur.
Hello everyone, good morning.
Good morning.
So thank you so much for the introduction, sir. It's a pleasure to be here, and as I mentioned, I love to foster innovation in this city. So in case there is anything that you need, you can always reach out to me. I have my contact details in the end. You can always help me. So as I expected, I've tried to explain my journey using what you have seen for the last 4 days. So things of benefits that are there, the programs, the grants. Fortunately, I have done the entire process, so I'd be happy to share my learnings and lessons in the end. So I'll begin. Uh, the places that we grow up have a very special place in our hearts. They have the venue. They're the venue to the most treasured memory, right? So our childhood stories, the first office, the first place that probably we went out as a children. We went to theaters, we went to malls, so on. But it's very troubling to know that these buildings are responsible for more than 45% of the global carbon emissions. The materials that we use for construction and the requirements of heating and cooling are responsible for the 45% of global carbon emissions. Meet my friend Roy. He's a real estate developer from Vizag who does almost 5 lakh square feet of construction annually. Over the last decade, his problems have also become very unique. Now he's getting so much more regulatory pressure asking him to reduce his carbon footprint. The customers are looking for buildings which are more sustainable and better insulated. And lastly, he's not making as much profits as he used to make before. Now, what if the buildings that Roy makes were not just net zero, but could actually reverse climate change and also make more money for it? To make this happen, we created AgroCrete. It's the world's first carbon negative building material, which is made up of crop residues, such as rice straw, sugarcane bagasse, cotton stalks, and industrial byproducts, which are ashes and slags from the steel and power industries. AgroCrete is a patented innovation already granted in India and is also pending in 9 jurisdictions across the world. It has all the necessary third-party certifications to go to market. Some of the notable ones include CBRI, which is Central Building Research Institute, Roorkee. It is the apex authority for any building materials certification to go to market. So even if Tata was to create a product, they still have to go there and get the certification. Second is BMTPC, which is Building Materials Technology Promotion Council, set up by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. So if there's any newer innovation, they sort of promote the innovation across the government projects. And lastly, when I make the claim it's carbon negative, it has been verified under the international EPD system, which is basically on the basis of an ISO and a European standard. The product is certified to be carbon negative, which means that we're actually reversing climate change by the top. Yes, so when we look at the material, we look at what is going on in terms of the materials used for it. So for example, crop residues, industrial byproducts, all of that, combination of how much they avoid carbon on that. The manufacturing, so consuming power is also something that's an emission happens. Transporting the materials from one point to the other, that's also where is emission. So when you look at the entire emissions that are coming out of the entire value chain, that's basically when you arrive at the value called as embodied carbon. If the embodied carbon is in negative values, it becomes carbon negative. In our case, because we're using crop residues, we are studying this negative values. How do crop residues work? Crops are basically using photosynthesis process. They capture CO2 and then convert that into plant matter. Crop basically that becomes a carbon stock because of all the CO2 that has captured. What we're doing is we're taking the crop residues and locking it inside the block, taking it completely out of the carbon cycle. In the chemistry that's happening inside the block, it's becoming a mineral, so it's always locked around the entire carbon chain molecule, because of which we're able to achieve carbon emission status.
Otherwise, if you use that residue as it is, it has to be burnt or it goes into the soil, I think it produces carbon.
Correct. So that again releases particulate matter. Then there's you put it into the soil again, releases methane, which is even more harmful. So any other way of decomposing it would mean that there's more harmful emissions that come out of the process. So when you look at Agrocrete, it's in the form of hollow blocks. I'm glad that you all saw the office. I didn't have the time to bring the blocks at this point in time. But Agrocrete is in the form of hollow blocks and is suitable for all kinds of buildings. We can make low-rise to high-rise, residential to commercial to industrial buildings. Its basis of an IS score which is 2185, which basically has 5 parameters which tested on. The first is the strength. The blocks are stronger than the conventional bricks, has a life of minimum 75 years, has lower water absorption, making it suitable for you don't have water seepage issues. It has lower density than conventional materials. Lighter materials are suitable for more high-rise buildings, so we can have the same lower density makes it easy for high-rise construction. Embodied carbon, like I just explained, is in negative values. And lastly, it has the best in standard thermal insulation, because of which we're reducing the heating and cooling requirements of the buildings. Now, what this enables builders to do is, I'll come to that a bit later. When you look at Agrocrete, it's 100% upcycled material, which means that we're only using byproducts from other industries. It has 0% emissions in the entire manufacturing process. So Agrocrete has 3 raw materials. First is crop residues, which can be any fibrous crop residue. We take the crop residue, have a small preparation process where we chop it into 1 inch, and then we run through this press machine that we have. It makes it fibrous in nature. Second is ash that we get from the power industry. We take the ash as it is and use it directly for the blocks. Third thing is slags that we get from the steel industry. We turn the slags into a powder form which is called binder, which we have created. So the crop residues, the ash and binders together mixed in a simple pan mixing machine. After that, it's taken to a hydraulic machine that's been specifically designed, where the blocks are compacted in the specific mold and shape that we have.
You're not using any gravel in this?
No gravel. So the aggregate is basically crop residues in our case. So gravel, sand, all of that typically works in the form of aggregate. So that's basically being replaced with crop residues. So there is no cement, there is no sand, there is no lime, there is nothing, no virgin material used at all in this. So then we have this hydraulic machine where the mix is then taken, compacted into the block, the size and the shape that we have designed. After that, the blocks are left open to air for 7 days for natural curing. There is no burning process. So something that you notice in red bricks is that they burn it. So you have this black from the chimneys, you see the smoke coming out of it. No burning process here. It's very interesting to know that I can run the entire factory on renewable power as well. So I just have to invest in solar, I can run the entire operations just using this. After the blocks are cured for 7 days, we then supply to our customers who are real estate developers and builders. What is the benefit to our real estate developers and builders is that we're reducing the cost of construction by 50%, increasing the insulation of the building by 350%, and helping them make buildings which are carbon negative. So, in this current point of time, the products that we are replacing are the conventional red bricks, the fly ash bricks, AAC blocks. As I said earlier, cost savings 50% lower. We are also creating a new category in the entire industry called as carbon negative construction blocks. That's not there at all in the entire world, and that's a dent that we have created. It's very easy for the masons to work with, so because of which I don't have to go and teach the masons or upskill them. It's very easy for them to work with. So when we started working on this innovation, it was very important to understand what was happening on the ground level. And I can't just create a product and say that the market will take it up. I need to understand what the market's problems are and then create the innovation. So when we spoke to more than 500 architects and developers and builders to understand what are the problems that they're facing, what they said clearly is that you can make any innovation, but if the mason doesn't know how to work with this, there's no point of creating this product. So we had to create a system which makes it very easy for the masons to work with. Today, if you look at it, even a small child, though child labor is not allowed, even a small child can just go assemble the blocks together. That's how simple it is for them to work with.
So in order to make them together, what material are you using to?
Yeah.
Is it cement that you're
Yes, so
using?
currently we can use a normal cement mortar to make the joining of the blocks to happen. Alternatively, we also created a low carbon cement replacement that can also be used to join the bricks together. So we have both the options.
So what is the thermal last slide?
Yeah. Thermal conductivity.
What is it?
So thermal conductivity is basically what is the ability for the heat or the cool to transmit from the outside to the inside. That's basically the conductivity that we see.
Does it cover the radiation? Thermal conductivity?
Radiation is not applicable in our case.
Not applicable. How can we say that it is not applicable?
So radiation
Is
is
it tested?
Yeah, it is tested. So when you look at radiation, it's mostly like you're talking about the sun's radiation to come into the picture, right? So when we look at it,
UV.
UV rays, right? When you come to the ground level in terms of when you're making a building, that does not really factor into the entire design of the structure. Because when you're walking on the road as well, you didn't say that the UV rays are too high and then you're worrying about that aspect. So when you come to a building as well, all we need is just an envelope that prevents that UV rays to come inside. So it does not transmit through the material. It gets reflected on the surface itself. So that's how the UV rays reflection also works. What is important is to understand how well the building is insulated. Higher the insulation, lower the requirements for heating and cooling. So when you build with Agrocrete, you just see a difference of 5 degrees from what's outside temperature and what's inside temperature without it even using any cooling or heating requirements. So that's the insulation that is desired by the customer.
In case of any fire accident,
Yeah.
what is the difference that they face?
Yeah. So the blocks have fire resistance of 4 hours, standard to the conventional materials. Yeah. Typically you get 2 hours rating in a conventional bricks. We have 4 hours of rating. So you
We
don't
are
have-
using crop residue,
Yeah.
right? So it is prone to catch the fire very
Yes.
quickly.
Yeah. So when you look at the entire process of manufacturing, what happens is we have the chemistry basically works like this. It's an advanced alkali activation chemistry that we have created. Wherein the crop residues work with the mineral binder, and they become it's a mineralization process that happens. So you don't see the crop residues as the way that it is. Even when you saw the block, you wouldn't be able to notice that there's actually crop residues in it. What happens is the chemistry works in such a manner that it becomes minerals over time. So it's not anymore fire. I mean, it does not attract fire. It doesn't light up like we normally see forest fires. It does not work like that. So because of the entire mineral matrix that we have created, crop residues get entombed in this, and there's no more fire risk and hazard.
What is the percentage of your agroindustry?
60% is crop residues,
60%.
30% is ash, and 10% is pine.
Slag.
Slag.
Compared to the regular ones, what is the difference? We put 4 hours system.
Yeah.
What is the regular?
2 hours.
2 hours.
But
It's
the
a fire
bricks,
resistant.
they don't burn, no? Already they are burned bricks.
Correct.
They don't catch fire, they will not burn.
So the disintegration is what happens after a lot of time. So when you look at even red bricks, which is basically the burnt clear red bricks, after it's exposed to a lot of heat, you'll start seeing it disintegrating. So when you just touch it, it becomes like a powder. So for example, in Homam, when we do this nice Homam pit, you notice some of the bricks get so charged that you just touch it, they start breaking it.
You can use these for home and blocks.
Yes, you can. So that disintegration will lead to basically a risk.
That's what they bring blocks when
Yeah.
the fountain
Yeah.
they bring blocks along with them
The
when they
solid
are.
bricks, yes.
You can use these.
They are
You can use this, but that's more related to culture rather than this. So culturally, they're divided.
Yeah, really.
That's the problem.
You're right.
Where like culturally, you want to use clay, but then bricks and making like that. That's basically it.
And that we are using ash. Ash and
Ash is there, yes. But even red bricks has cement in it. So I mean, there is no right and wrong.
yeah.
So yeah, so I was saying that the construction is very easy. The masons have the ability to work with this
The
without
red bricks, they use cement also.
Yes.
I have never heard of it.
Yeah. Cement is now the so first of all, red bricks is banned. The government has banned red bricks, but then it still continues to be in market because government gave a small. So they created the system where you can add ash and cement to make it suitable for construction. So what they said is that 100% clay bricks are banned now. Wherever there is power plants, you have to start using ash-based bricks, which is fly ash bricks. That's why fly ash bricks became such a big thing.
Now, village side and all they use mud bricks only.
So many much things. Yes.
Where is the ban? We're not doing it yet.
That's one level. The second level is when you look at all the owners of these brick kilns, like typically like panchayat leaders or the local government leaders, because of which they have the ability to control how the law is also applied there. So they're able to run the show. But then if you look at a government order, it says that these are banned. And the ban is basically within a radius of 200 kilometers from a power plant. You can't have brick kilns. What they've done is that if you add ash to your brick, they can start using this. So what they do is they manage somehow using ash.
What's the supply time from the time of placing an order by builders?
So we maintain our stock. We don't wait for the order to come in. So typically when a customer comes to us, they go like, we need the blocks to supply within 2 weeks. And they'll have X amount of quantities that have to be supplied. So what we do is we maintain a stock. It takes us 7 days to produce the block from zero to the finished product. So because of which we can't take per order, we maintain the stock. But the way the builders also look at it, they come 2 weeks, they give us the lead time and they like supply the block. So we maintain a stock as per.
what is the mode of cutting?
Yeah. So you can use normal saw cutting, which is basically now was a standard practice. The larger blocks are cut through saw itself. So we
saw
can,
or the water jet,
water jet is not necessary. Water jet is like high tech.
granite? Yeah.
Water jet is not necessary. You just use normal saw. In some cases, they can actually cut it with their hand also. They get them spoon together.
When it comes to high rises, more than 30 floors,
Yes.
normally they go with the cement, right? Completely.
Correct. Fly ash.
How can we use this kind?
Absolutely. So when we look at the tech specs of the brick that is used for high-rise construction, it's AAC blocks. So our blocks are better than AAC block itself. So when you look at this, the cured blocks that you see, that's basically what's used for high-rise construction. So AAC, CLC, that's the segment that's typically used. Even for high-rise buildings, we're reducing the cost of construction for even the builders there. Even the installation of the buildings
There
improve.
is no brick, right? Like, for example, if I am going for 30 floors, so I have not seen any brick. Everything is with the cement, like shear walls.
Such shear wall technology, that is what is there right now in Hyderabad, which is growing. The problem with shear walls is the insulation is very low. So even now, if you go to any Hyderabad house, any of these high-rise buildings, you notice extremely hot inside. It's always the AC is turned on. So there was actually an article that we published online to talk about how shear walls are not good for climate, because more shear wall construction directly means you have to use more ACs and heating, which basically means more emissions that come out of the process. So there was recently a meeting that was happening with the head of Ultratech, local head of Ultratech here for sales, and we were talking about shear wall technology and just discussing that. And then he himself brought it up, sir, that shear wall technology is a problem. A lot of people like are right now are using this, but the insulation is really bad. And he claimed that customers are coming to him and saying that why are you using shear walls? The insulation is poor. What's the problem? And they're showing an article as a reference. And he was talking about that article, and that's the article that we wrote. Like, this is the problem. So a lot of customers are getting awareness about what insulation really matters. Using shear wall technology or Maiwan construction, all of this is actually a problem in the long run. A lot of sustainable builders, architects are starting to choose to stay away from the technology.
So the solution is
Solution is that.
that. So with the brick way,
Yeah, go back to the bricks. That
even
basic
30
correct.
floors, sir.
So what we're also doing is that we're trying to make a mix. The way how shear wall construction is happening is a concrete core. We're trying to see if we can make agrocrete in the same consistency as that we see with concrete. So instead of using concrete that we use now, we can use agrocrete as a replacement for that. So you get better insulation. It's more greener. It's more cleaner.
What is the durability?
Life for minimum 75 years. The chemistry is something that you had noticed. There are instances of the chemistry being used in the Great Wall of China, and you know how many decades that has been here from now. So it's very similar. It's something that we have picked up from there and sort of incorporated in the day-to-day use.
So how it has been tested, the durability?
So it's, yeah, so there's basically cycling, wetting and drying that happens. That's the scientific way of testing how the materials have been. Same testing procedures apply to concrete, bricks, everything. So it's the same testing that we have done.
BAS you can put there.
It's an IS code.
IS.
So IS 2185, which is the relevant standard.
Is not this agrocrete registered as a trademark?
Yes, it's registered. One of the first things I did.
What is the self-rate of each measurement?
So when we looked at, so different block sizes are there. You might have noticed this at the office as well. So when we look at it, we look at the terms of density. So what's the density of the material? So different shape and form will end up to the same density. Our density is 800 kg per cubic meter. So when we look at our 4-inch block, it's roughly 6 kgs in weight. Our 6-inch block is roughly 8 kgs. Then we have an 8-inch block, which is roughly 10 kgs. And the 9-inch block is roughly 13 kgs.
Can we put plates to these blocks?
Yes, so that's the next feature that I was talking about, heavy anchorages. So you can do your nailing, drilling, chiseling without any cracks being formed. So now high-rise structures, AAC blocks, even concrete blocks, all of them have this problem that you can't nail and drill it with. If you do any nailing, either a crack will form or the nail won't go in. For concrete, the nail won't go in. For an AAC block, the cracks will form.
There are holes, right, for the bricks?
Yes. So when we look at the layout of the wall, it's basically the hollow cores come to the top. So the sides are basically the walls that come. The thickness of the wall is 40 mm. The basics, the requirements to make sure that your plumbing lines, electrical lines can be drawn. You can do it in nailing and drilling. The material itself has a strength of almost M25 grade concrete. So just pure material, when you look at it, that's the strength that you get out of it. So when we put it into assembly, you get really strong wall in that sense. So even when you do nailing, drilling, nothing happens. No cracks.
So there is RCBs ASCIBIS they call, ASCIBIS formula, all these local carpenters or masons use, wherein whenever there is available material within their locality, they are going to use 80% of it, and the rest with the 20% they
Yes.
would like to get it from other places.
Yes.
Okay, whenever, like if you are suggesting agro-tree blocks to a place where there is ash or the material that is required for making of these blocks are not available, so what is your stake, what is your role in that particular scenario?
Right. So when you look at the technology that you mentioned, basically using localized localized earth and mud to make the basically walls. That's the tech that you're referring to. So one of our early advisors was pioneers of that technology itself. So she was the architect Revati Kamath. She was really big in this industry. Her entire house was made on that technology itself. So the problem with this is that when we look at the local soil, it's very subjective. Only in few cases where the local mud and earth is available, which we can use for that particular application. Otherwise, it also has to be transported from longer distances to different places. In our case as well, when we look at sustainability as a parameter, it is always important to use materials which are locally. So it has to be manufactured locally and has to be consumed locally. And that's basically how we have designed our business model as well. So I'll come to that aspect in a little bit.
And how long it has been patented? Since it is patented?
So our early publication was filed in 2020. So 2020 onwards we have it.
Oh, it is patented to
Yeah. So we have protections is 2020.
any post-grant applications or something? Post-grant application. Anyway.
No grant opposition.
So we are really interested to know the invention. Is it possible to open the invention? To see the
patent document.
Yeah,
it's with me.
Okay.
I'm searching it.
Yeah, so patent is a file. You can just go to Google Patents, you can find the data. I mean, we file it internationally, right? So it's always in public. You can notice that.
Whatever patent that you have filed within India, will that be applicable when you are exporting these materials, or do you have to take the patent rights pertaining to that country?
So patents are territorial in nature, which means that if I file a patent and have received the patent in India, it's only applicable in India. If I want to claim protection anywhere else, I need to file it within that jurisdiction. So we have filed our patent applications across 9 jurisdictions, already granted India. So there's a PCT route that we follow basically to get this international safety.
My question here is your what do you call, whatever material that you're using is applicable to this area where the ash, crop residue and other materials are available. When you go to other locations, their local material would be different. So are you trying to use that local composition, or you're going to stick to your the 3 components that you're using?
So the patents that we have filed are in economies which are agrarian in nature. So the location that we have chosen are also in such a manner that we have the same properties that we use in here. So while you see what's happening in India in terms of crop residues, it happens across the world as well. So there's more than 2 billion tons.
Yeah, crop residue, okay.
So second is ash. Any power industry is basically coal powered at this point of time. There is very little bit of solar penetration that's happening in the market. 4 power industries are available across the world. That's it. So we get ash as well. Third thing is slags. Slags are steel industries. Those are also present across the locations in the entire world. So we're choosing such locations where there is availability of slag at this point in time. So wherever there's steel manufacturing happening, that's also one of the locations. So it works something similar to this. Wherever there is steel manufacturing happening, ash is available there. And crop residues is basically location that you would identify where that is there. So when we chose our 9 jurisdictions, we chose in such a manner that all the 3 materials are available. And like you mentioned in terms of patents, right? So I was at this event organized by the US Embassy once in Delhi, and there was this expert in the patents and IP space who come down, and he was giving us this advice and tips, right? So patents are territorial in nature, so I get only protection in India. His advice was that, see, if someone has filed a patent, why don't you just open the patent, see what the technology is, try to duplicate it within your country. So that's basically a way of saying that you can look at innovations happening outside and try to duplicate it. So that's a way of people work, right? But what matters is that how strong is your innovation, whether there's some levels to this. So while you might notice some information in my patent, you still not be able to replicate what you've created. So there's some secret sauce that's still there that we have conscious. So intellectual property is a strategy. It's not about you get a patent, you file it, you're done. So when you look at even like robots that are being generated today, people file 20-30 patents on the same robot. They'll talk about how is this finger moving, how is this elbow moving, all of that gets covered in the patent. They put layers and layers on these IP so that people can't penetrate. And that's basically how you build up an IP strategy. So that's in itself is a strategy in that sense. So one patent that you get granted is not sufficient. It's always important to portfolio, exactly. Create like a strategy. And even when you're filing your patent,
What is it, sir?
make a portfolio of your patent. And also when you're filing your patent, there's also one more nice tip is that, so for example, if my name is Varun, V-A-R-U-N, patent granted with something called as V-A-R-U-N. It's not a patent, I'm just giving an example that my claims are V-A-R-U-N. Now someone says, okay, what if I do it V-A-R-I-N? Instead of U, I put an I. I basically superseded the patent. Now it's not under the protection. So what is important to cover in your patent application is also that make sure it has like a range of things that it's covering. Right? It should not be like so specific that you do a minor tweak to the entire arrangement and your patent is of no use. So drafting a patent should also be done. That it's not very easy for them to replicate it or create an alternative by just changing it few key here and there. So that's also one important lesson that we learned over time. Where we are filing at least our patent.
How would you
Widening the scope of the claims.
Exactly. Widen the slope, don't make it very specific.
So how would you do with your name?
So name is not possible.
I know that. See the example that you gave, just gave. How would you go around with it?
So
designer.
the example that I gave was VARUN. So basically,
you also do VARN, all these things.
exactly. So you would want to say that okay, VAR, it can be U, it can be I, it can be E, it can be J, it can be N. So make it like that. So basically you cover more aspects. So that's only for one letter, right? Then there's A also. What if it can be VIRUN, VA? So whatever options that are there, try to combine all of those things so that it becomes a very encompassing.
Phonetically, it's
Yeah. So technically in patents, VARUN doesn't apply. It's basically claims that you make. So if I'm making, for example, crop residues as a base, I'll say that I can use a lot of range of crop residues. And I'll also say all kind of possible permutations and combinations to make the material. So maybe I can make with 60% crop residues. Maybe I can make it with 30%. So I ensure that the range gets covered.
so at the same time, the research should be so strong that you know all the
Correct. So that's basically where the early publication also comes in. So you can start claiming your intellectual property. Let's just say, for example, today I got an idea. Okay, this is very interesting. I don't think there's in the market. So I'll go and file this early publication. So what's the key term called? Early publication, sir, right? So you file the early publication saying that this is a technology that seems to be interesting. You get 12 months time. You tell in the 12 months, sorry, provisional, yeah. So provisional patent is what you file, right? Provisional patent you file. You get 12 months time to finalize it, make tweaks, make any modifications, and create this all-encompassing patent. That's basically the 12 months, and you get that the provisional is, when you file the provisional, that's when you start getting the provisional. So in our case, we filed the provisional in 2020. The actual grant happened in October 2021. So that's basically how you want to design your IP strategy as well.
And also simply mentioning that I covered 0 to 100% crop residue, it is difficult to get a patent. You have to give examples.
Right.
You conducted experiment with 0%, 10%, 20%, 30%, how the properties are affected.
Yeah.
You have to give some examples.
all
Then
the
only-
research due diligence should be done.
Yeah.
So when even the examiner does the diligence, they look at each claim. They look at each claim. They look at whether this is there in the market, whether someone has already done this. So they will say that okay, out of 20, 30 claims that you have filed, maybe 5 of them are already there in the market. There's no point of those claims. They'll only give protection for the other 20 claims. So all of those are things that we get. I mean, when you start working with the lawyer, they start asking these questions. Or chair here. So we start asking the question in terms of how to do it and all of that.
So patent granted within 2 years since filing.
So when we filed the main application, within 6 months we got the result.
expedited execution,
Yes, expedited. We took the expedited route. For very smooth.
like a startup it went.
Yeah, startup route itself. So we took the benefits in terms of
Right,
rebate
right.
in filings and all of that.
Right.
That's what's from there. So I didn't have to pay any patent fees to the attorneys, completely covered. All I had to pay was the government fees, which was 4,500 rupees or something.
So is it commercialized anywhere else, like apart from UK?
No, there is nowhere. In the across world, there is no other product that has the same technical parameters and properties.
No, I mean to say like when it goes to the PC tool.
Hmm.
So is it granted anywhere else?
No, it's not granted anywhere else. The PCT was filed only in December, and also it's very expensive, so it has not been done.
And how many countries it will learn?
Nine.
patent also.
Yes, PCT. So PCT is very expensive. So just to like, we understand that there is an international WIPO treaty, and then you can just use that and file it. But then please understand that even when you apply that, so when we filed our patent in India, we mentioned that we'll take the WIPO route, which means that we'll also claim for international protection. You make the submission, but after that you get the question saying that which are the countries you want this to be filed. And yeah, but once you put the tick mark, each country will say that you have to pay this fee for our country.
Each country has got its own fee structure.
Exactly. So now, if you think of it, there's so many countries, and you want to start looking at each country and which you want to apply, your bill might even cross 1 crore just on the fees that you want to pay for government fees. So we spent roughly 40 lakhs on the international patent part only. So, and now I don't know if someone opposes it, then I have to file for that. I have to say that how is this now? So budget is basically twice of what the government fees is. So if you're getting a 1 crore budget, take 2 crores as your expenditure that you might have to keep aside in terms of your patent fee. Okay, coming back to tech. So
Any training is required for the mason? Like
yes, so it's very easy for the construction to happen. So masons don't have any training. We show them the block, we tell them that typically the only difference is the cement application. So normally when they look at the normal red bricks, they apply cement like this. In our case, they have applied in sideways. That's the only difference. Very easy for the masons to work with. From the projects that we have already completed and the testimonies that I have received from customers, there's a minimum of 2.5 times productivity and efficiency that we've seen in our masons. So they're very happy in terms of it. And the next question was heavy anchorages. Yes, we can do our nailing, drilling, chiseling without any cracks being formed. So suitable for all kinds of buildings that we want.
How to believe all these claims?
By doing it, sir. So there's IS 2185, which basically does all the testing. So the certificate that you see, this comes with visuals in terms of how this has happened, how this has not happened. So you'll see that. Second thing is obviously customers will do it. They'll see the photos, they'll do the experiments at the site location and then decide to do this. So all of that is also documented. So our social media has all of that. Also, whenever we go to our customers, we show them as projects that were completed before. So they see it and decide whether this works or not.
Public houses were constructed so far using
One by one.
One way.
like I was saying, we're applying cement this side. So there is only horizontally that you are sticking it together. What about vertical?
No ma'am, vertically we're putting, horizontal we're not.
Join the bricks to the
I have a photo coming next. I'll cover it. I'll cover your question also next. This slide's coming. So second thing is it being lightweight. It's suitable for all kinds of structures. We can make high-rise buildings, low-rise buildings. And this is very exciting and something that we want to change in the entire industry. When we look at how the supply chain works right now, 87% is unorganized. And as an opportunity, when you look at entrepreneurs, if there's something that's unorganized, you might be sitting on a gold mine. Might be there's something that's a brilliant option that you can solve there. So in our case, 87% of the industry is unorganized. You have these small brick kilns, Batti, even Lancaster. Those are all done in a very unorganized manner. You just call up the person, he'll supply it, maybe he will not. And even when he's supplying it, he'll put the bricks in such a manner that he'll say that I've sent 1,000 bricks, but there are actually 750 bricks inside. Center is all empty, sides just fully covered it. So you'll waste money there. So there's all of that happens in terms of the supply chain.
and also there is no quality
Quality also
certification.
there.
Quality is also not guaranteed. One guy will say that this is gold
One
quality,
side
this
so
is
much of
amazing.
burning, one side will not burn.
Exactly. And sometimes you get an overburnt brick that can't be used. So quality is also a big challenge. What we're trying to create is a very organized supply chain in the entire ecosystem. Our factories are completely powered through hydraulic machines and electricity, which means you get the same quality of block all the time. And we also want to make a very simplified system where if anyone wants to procure the raw materials, they can easily do it from us through our websites or other manners that we try to develop.
Like synthetic foods and colors. They also add some colors to the bricks to get the redness.
Yes, yes. Actually, that's the question that we also get a lot. Like, color is all grey, can we do different colors? So yes, we can also do different colors. We can add pigments, we can make different shades to come. But then it's like, it's like a Gucci brick. Like, why do you want to spend so much money on a brick? You don't paint it on a wall or something.
The general perception is that the brick is more red, is more stronger, more burnt brick,
Yeah.
and that is the public
That is the
perception.
point. And even the top of the kind of soil that we also use, that also makes a difference. So that's how you get that energy. So our journey started way back in 2014. So our founder, Mr. Tarun Jami, also my elder brother, was finishing his civil engineering, and he was going to start working, and then realized that normal concrete, cement and steel is highly polluting. And he didn't want to be one who was leading to this. The Vizag beach is very close to his heart. The water was coming closer and closer every time he used to come down to Vizag. So what he started noticing is that he started doing a little bit of research to figure out what is there that's there on the market. So in the 9th Google page search, he came across a technology called as hempcrete. So hempcrete is basically a material predominantly used in European countries for insulation, made up of the cannabis plant. So they were using the stalks of the cannabis plant to make an insulation material. So we were like, okay, he was excitedly interested with this, sort of fell in love with it, that's what he claims also. So he was like, what if we can bring that technology to India? Started doing his research. He went for a master's program with a thesis already in his mind, and then he got a PhD on this as well now. Now what happened is in 2019, this was a prototype, we created the world's strongest hempcrete technology, the world's best, so suitable for Indian climate. We can make the construction happen with hempcrete. So we started going to governments, and as a lawyer, I had the knack for policy. So I was thinking what help I could do. So I started to represent in government, I started to talk to ministries, excise minister, this minister, all ministers. So I was speaking to them, sir, we can make blocks out of this, things that they're burning as waste, the things that you're criminalizing is a problem. So Indian policy says that you can use hemp for industrial application, industrial medicinal application, there's no problem.
Plant hempcrete.
Yes, sir, it's basically cannabis. So this is the stalks of the plant. So the stem that you see, that's basically what we use to make this. So in 2019, we created the world's strongest hempcrete technology, and we're ready to go to market. And we were thinking of how to make this.
Telugulo ఏమంటారు ఈ plant ని?
Ganja.
You tried the addiction things.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Ganja, yeah.
That's Ganja, yeah.
Ah.
But it's
So they used to make so
Get the permission for the
exactly, ma'am. So the policy says that hemp can be used for industrial and medicinal applications. And the government basically said that each state government should come up with their own policy on how to use this. Now, no state government wants to deal into this because so much problem, right? We'll be like, oh, recreational use, people will start using more drugs. How will we allow this and everything? And we had to sit and explain the scientific difference. Cannabis and hemp are like sisters. Cannabis can be used for recreational purposes because there's something called as THC. THC is what gives you the high and the kick. Hemp doesn't have the THC. Now I can't sit and convince the government 100 times saying that, sir, this is the difference, please understand it, please understand it. We're spending all our resources on this. It was just not working out. So we thought, what if we could just license the technology? There are other European countries which are doing much better, they have very good policy on this. They're very fast moving in that sense. So we're in Delhi having a conversation to see if we can license the technology. But in Delhi, October to December is also really bad time because there's a really, really bad air quality issue. So, and the big reason for the air quality issue is because of crop residue burning. The farmers in the nearby areas burn the crop residue as soon as the harvest is done. So we thought, what is the reason for this problem? And these areas, the crop residues are there. So we thought, what if we replace hemp with crop residues? And that's basically how Agrocrete came into existence. So we did a little bit of trials, we replaced hemp, we made Agrocrete, and now Agrocrete is the best technology that you see for poly applications now. And I can scale this across the world. There's no restrictions, I don't have to sit and explain the technology. So this was one of our first pivots. I think pivot is a term that you might have heard in the last week about how you should change or modify as you're progressing in terms of your direction. If it's not working out, try to modify it, try to make it. This was the first pivot that we did. I think also the only pivot. So we did this in December, we created like a prototype. This was so funny that once we made the product, an art curator thought this would be a nice art exhibition piece. So he asked us to make 150 blocks. We made it with our hand and we sent it to Goa. And they put this in an exhibition called the Serendipity Arts Festival. It's actually one of the biggest art festivals that happen in India. And that's basically the arrangement that they did. and we're like, this is the basic thing that we did. All of this was handmade, so we're like, okay, we're getting to some place. There's something that is able to be generated. The blocks were good, it was looking good, it got a lot of interest. They're like, this is very interesting, let's see what we can do. And they got a really good story around this, right? So crop is used, preventing them from burning, there's nice product coming out of it, there's a lot of story that we're able to generate. That we produce materials locally and consume locally. Transporting over long distances means we are having a lot more emissions because of transportation. So we had to figure out a way that we could target the markets. And that's basically when we created the decentralized hub and spoke franchise operations model. What we're doing now is that we're licensing the technology to local entrepreneurs to set up their own manufacturing facilities. So what is the responsibility for the local entrepreneur? They procure the crop residues locally. They procure the ash locally. They procure binder from us, which we supply from our hub locations. We manufacture binder and supply to these factories. They manufacture the blocks and supply the blocks to the end customer for ASA drivers and builders. The limitation in radius is that around 250 kilometers we can transport the blocks without losing too much on sustainability, and also makes financial sense for our customers and builders. What Green Jams is doing is taking care of all the sales and marketing efforts. So bringing on customers, lead generation, explaining them the technical presentations, addressing all the questions of the architects, helping them reach their decision. So we're making all the sales and marketing efforts, and we get money for all of that effort. So all the purchase that happens via Green Jams. So all the revenue is booked at Green Jams, and then we're also getting some commissions and royalty based on it. So we raised an angel round of funding as well in October of 2021. Literally a week later, we got our patent granted. I think I would have got a better valuation if my patent had come before and I raised the round after. But we used that money, we set up a factory at Meerut, Uttar Pradesh. So the first large-scale factory that we had set up, a lot of learnings in the process. After that, we started working with marquee customers like ITC. Now, ITC has loved the product so much that it's the preferred choice of material. So if you look at the tender documents, you will see Agrocrete as the material that they want to use for construction. So across any projects that ITC wants to do, Agrocrete is the preferred choice of material. This was a pilot thing that they done. So there was a question on how the block should be laid. So if you look at it, the hollow cores basically come on the top. This is basically where the hollow
Is there
cores
any
come.
reason you have operations started at the place?
Delhi NCR. So Delhi understands the entire problem of crop history burning the most. So we thought, why don't we target there? People are connected to that issue. So we started using that as the. So basically, when you look at the laying of the block, the hollow parts come here. The cement mortar is basically placed on the side of this. That's basically only place where you put it.
In that hollow space also in left.
No, sir. Hollow space is left hollow. Keeping it hollow improves the insulation of the wall, so that allows them to reduce the heating and cooling requirements.
Yeah, it's I'm
Expansion
working
and contraction.
That was.
on something called design thinking.
Yeah.
So how did you arrive at the design? Because in design thinking it's loop where
Correct.
iterations where you go
Yeah.
to different
So fortunately, when we started the entire process of figuring out how to work with the customer, surveys was still the trend. So first step is to understand what the problem statements are. Right? So what is the something that they really do? That's basically the first step, right? Our customer persona defined real estate development builder, and there what are the problem statements that they have. So there's a lot of secondary research also available. Lists of like the top 10 problems that the builders are facing. So cost would be one, masons friendliness would be second. Sustainability was like 7th parameter at the time we started. Now there's a newer segment which is just focused on sustainability, which is like the second priority for them. Cost will also come below that. So all of these were things that were listed in terms of parameters. After that, we started doing variations. So when you look at this particular block, the thickness of 40 mm that we arrived at was also on the basis of trials, stipulations, getting the opinions of the experts. All of that was done to understand whether this works perfectly or not. So even the way you see how the hollow core is placed, at the position of which is placed, all of those are based on trials and changes and modifications that we are doing. Basically with experts' opinions and analysis. So yes, it did lead to a lot of, we had to make a lot of renders to figure out what's the best way to do it. In addition to this, we also have to see how it could be manufactured and scaled elsewhere. I can't just make a technology and not be able to manufacture it, because I have to make a business model around it. So whether this can be fabricated in your equipment or not. So those are also things that we had to understand and explain before we could finally keep it what the size is, how the blocks are.
So how many iterations?
I think we have done at least 50 plus iterations on all of this entire process.
So Now it's stopped or is it
It's never stopped.
on the back?
So yeah. So now what I'll come to what also in the future, right? But now what we're saying is that now you see cement in between, right? Now I want to remove the cement. So what I think of doing is interlocking blocks. So I make modifications such a manner that two blocks just sit into grooves,
And you can-
both horizontally and vertically.
So can you eliminate the cement?
I eliminate cement from the entire system. So then even more cost savings. And it's like Lego. Small Lego bricks can be joined together. Lego anyone can do. I don't even have to teach the mason on how to make assembly. Lego bricks just joined together. So we're seeing a few possibilities on how to make this happen. So there are a few nice designs that people have created. There's one person that design patent who made the design but is not able to execute it. We were fortunately able to execute the product because we made the material. We thought why don't we merge and see what can be done. So that's a work in progress.
So if you make a Lego-based model, it will be an international
Yep.
innovation because international nobody has come up with it.
Yeah, so that's actually an international patent, the design patent. So the design was internationally done. What we have created is a material which has international recognition. We want to see how we can bridge both of them. Then there's so much more, right? There's 3D printing also that's happening. I mean, you guys went to AMTZ. 3D printing is something that you have noticed there. So even in construction industry, 3D printing has now begun. What is amazing to note is that AgroPrint is a very versatile material. It can take any form and shape that you want it to take. So we want to see how we can use 3D printing as we used to make, prefabricated walls. Like basically walls are built in the factory, assembled at the site location. So those are also things that we want to build up in the process. So sir asked this question, how do you believe this? How do you believe it can do the nailing, drilling? So all of these are projects that we have completed to showcase that you can do your nailing, drilling, you can do your plumbing lines, you can do your drawing lines without any challenges being on. So this was in the hills, really different terrain, perfectly fine. So at this point of time we have two factories. One is located at Meerut, Uttar Pradesh. And there's one more coming up in Vizag very soon, later this month hopefully. We have completed more than 10 plus projects using 60,000 plus blocks across 5 different states, residential and industrial buildings as well as commercial buildings. What is very exciting to note is that in terms of growth of a company, you start looking at metrics, like how good is the company, how fast is it growing and all of that. What is important to understand is how well the customers love the product. The customer love is basically the retention rate. If for example today you're using say Pond's soap or something and you really like it, you'd go back and order the Pond's. So from Pond's perspective, they say that how well I've retained the customer. So we at this point have a 90% customer retention rate, which means that if someone has used the product, 90% chance that they're coming back to us. And we have more than 65 crores of inquiries that we're trying to fulfill at least across the country. It's because of its decentralized nature in Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities. We're trying to set up a factories and supply to these locations. And some of our customers include ITC, Tricon, CPI, so on. And our journey started with about sustainability. So we always quantify our metrics in terms of impact as well. So when you look at 3 lakh square feet of construction, we're able to capture 1,080 tons of CO2, prevent 3,500 tons of CO2. Now tons of CO2 is not something everyone can understand, even I don't understand as a matter of fact. So I'll just give you an example of what this means. When you drive on the Earth's circumference for 463 times, this much amount of emissions occur. 4,500 tons of CO2 emissions occur when you drive on the Earth's circumference for 14 times. And in addition to this, because of using crop residues, we're preventing almost 1,200 tons of stubble burning to happen. And that's also very interesting, a very recent insight. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And a very recent insight that we just got is that our Meerut factory has been operational for more than a year now. It's the second time we're procuring the crop residues. The instances have reduced by 30%. So because of us and a lot of other innovations that's happening in the ecosystem, 30% within our factory locations, the amount of crop residues have prevented from burning. So that's change that's happening in terms of even farmers' awareness.
Have you claimed any carbon credits?
So that's a process that we're working on. Carbon credits is also very expensive to onboard. It's a 2-year program that we already started. So we're working on making sure we get it very soon. And directly and indirectly, we're also achieving 9 of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. Which is also key to some of the social impact. So team, I believe, is also one of the key important aspects when it comes to building a strong enterprise. They have a well-rounded leadership team. So Mr. Jailan Murthy is a managing director, more than 35 years of experience. He was PhD the project director at Tata and the vice president and head of civil industry at Parliament. What's interesting about his career is that he has done more than 1 billion square feet of construction, headed projects worth crores and crores of rupees. What is nice is that he has commercialized 3 new construction technologies in India. So that gives us a lot of guidance on how to introduce a new product into the market, strategy. So, Jailan Murthy sir is also my dad, and he's an industry veteran. If we had to create a technology, if he had certified it, we are sure that it's going to work out. He just did not certify it. He left his job and started working with us. So that's how sure that my technology is great. That is one of our biggest achievements that we believe that we have achieved at this point in time. To convince my dad to actually leave his high-paying job and start working. Then there is Tarun, who is my elder brother. He's also getting a PhD in this from RMIT Australia and CBRI UK. He's a scientific authority in the subject matter. So he has multiple publications to his name. Across the world, any work that is done in the space of digital companies, they cite him for the innovation that he has created. 8 years of BTech experience. So he's created the product, he goes to market, he in the sales aspects. Then I am Varun. I'm actually a lawyer by training. I did like 15 plus programs in my universities, had this knack for curation. And I was going to be a first generation lawyer. So I also did like 15 internships during my law school to understand how the legal system works. During my last internship, I realized that I was better off being an entrepreneur than being a lawyer. And that's basically when I decided to start working at media. I also built like a really strong boards and advisory structure. So Mr. Surinder Goyal is currently the CEO for an Aditya Birla business. He was basically the head of Ultratech. We also have strong board observers. Rahil Pamesra was head of Aditya Birla's capital arm. Rajesh Krishnamurthy was country head of India for Financial Times and Standard 4. And Naushad Umar is director of operations at Virgin Atlantic. So we created this really strong boards and advisors who could give us guidance on how to go to market and the direction that we need. As of now, they have got support from the Department of Science and Technology, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, French Agency for Development. All of these are financial grants. I think there was a session on using funds. In our case, grants have been instrumental to what all we have achieved. We started with the first grant by IKEA Foundation, 10,000 euros. Until now, we have got 85 lakh rupees of grants. And all we have to do is just sit and apply. Just consistently look for opportunities, just apply to them, and they work out. So what happens along with grants is that it always is through part of incubation networks that you get these grants through. Because of which they also give you added mentorship, they also give you added network access. So all of those are things that gets value addition while you get the grants. So money is obviously free, and I don't have to worry too much about how I use it. I just have to show them that this is how you use the funds. Just have to submit the key report saying that this is what I've done. But then necessarily it's free. I don't have to give anything back to them. It's about business growth that I'm using the funds for. And in addition to the grants that we've received, we also raised funding. So people that I mentioned earlier are also one of our investors. So they also gives us.
Are you using the grants for PM Gati Shakti?
No, ma'am, not yet.
It's for infra.
It's for infrastructure, more typically in the highway segment
Yes.
and the.
So your product is not tested for the
No,
highway.
we're not suitable for that.
It's
So
for residential purpose.
residential commercial industry. So that is completely different design itself in terms of the material. So as a matter of fact, what we use for even paver blocks, that's also completely it's even more stronger in terms of material. But when you
You
look
can't
at,
use for payment.
it's not suitable for paver blocks.
Payment.
It's perfectly designed for buildings. That one.
Did you try to this apartment structures that
Yes, ma'am.
in Tata and cities?
Yeah. All apartments, all residential buildings, all high-rise buildings, commercial buildings. So we've been part of multiple incubators and accelerator programs as well. AHA being one of them. In addition to this, I'm part of Marshall and Switzerland, one of the world's top accelerator programs. Naam Ideas from Hyderabad. Wipro is one of the really large organizations in the social impact space, one of the world again. Been part of multiple media agencies that covered us, frequently, news, ETV, so on and so forth. Some of our achievements include, Sir said, folks again that he aged on 19 interviews of the modern. So that's basically what I had in terms of Green Jam. So any questions? Anything?
So what's the main difference between the green brick and the
Yeah. So when you look at green bricks in the market right now, it's basically lesser EBIT. So They still use ash, they still use cement, they still use aggregates like sand to make these bricks happen. So because these are virgin materials, they still have emissions that come out. Because they're less polluting than red bricks, we call them green bricks. But they still have some amount of pollution problems. In Agrocrete, it's completely carbon negative, because of which, in terms of metric of comparison, it's still like way far in terms of efficiency.
You are using cement water for joining the bricks, right? So in cement there is emission of carbon.
Correct. Cement has a set carbon emission. So when you look at
Carbon negative.
So when you look at the blocks, it's carbon negative. As a matter of fact, even steel is high emissions. Concrete also has emissions. So in terms of our material at this point of time, we're carbon negative.
Are these blocks recyclable?
Yes, ma'am, it is. So at the end of life, we can repurpose them and put it back into a mixer of ours and make the blocks.
Again.
So it won't come up like in red bricks. You can see that red brick comes out. In our case, it will disintegrate into maybe powder of sorts. So the question also highlights to what we're trying to build in the future. So at this point of time, what we see is blocks, but then we want to introduce a new plaster. It's called Agrocrete plaster. All of these are things that we've already done right away. So plaster has already been experimented to see, and we can do different shades, finishings, colors. So we want to get into that side of the interior decor process. And we want to use Agrocrete for making your foundations, your concrete, your slabs, and roofs. So we can make paver blocks, we can make your infrastructure building, all of that. So you want to make all of that as well carbon negative. So you want to start using Agrocrete for this application as well. And something that we have already done right now is decor. Decor is basically using Agrocrete for small goods in houses like planters, vases, coasters. So when you look at it, people buy their homes once or twice in their life, and they don't have too much say in terms of what goes into the building. But something that you can do is like decoration of your house, how you want to do that. So thinking of introducing a range of home decor items using Agrocrete as well. So the work in the progress is that right now, when you look at the cost, 20% of the construction cost is bricks, blocks. That's basically what we're doing. We want to scale that up to almost 80%. We want to change 80% of the way buildings are built. We want to change 80% of the way the emissions are coming from the buildings. We want to reverse climate change in the process. So that's basically what the future of Agrocrete is for us.
I think this IM Vizag is building a large amount of construction at Gandhi Road. So, what is your stake in that?
At this point of time, nothing. Reason
You have to make. Why? Because Andhra University is housing AHAB, and Andhra University is also housing IM Vizag. So, in that connection, if that too, all three belong to Vizag. Agrocrete Vizag, IM Vizag, Andhra Hub Vizag, all are Vizag. So, well, I can just tell you in Telugu. ఇంటికి ఇచ్చి రచ్చగలాలు అంటాం కదా ఐఎమ్ జస్ట్ టేక్ ఇట్ ఇన్ లైట్ నోట్ సో
I think they
you have to
follow,
and that too that
central
being an
government,
educational institution that being an educational institution which certifies everything I am so if you are into that space and shows that because they are actually going in a very big way. Last evening we had seen the video. It was kind of very inspiring. So if you be a part of that journey, I think it matters a lot. Like, so just I want to
Absolutely, sir. And
try to influence all the people
Yeah,
and
so
get into that.
I do the bachelor here. So when you look at some of these buildings of any national buildings like that, IM for example is done by the Central Public Works Department, CPWD, which has its own BIS, the Bill of Materials, Schedule of Rates ladder, which is basically where they can pick the materials from and start using it. So if they were to recommend Agrocrete, it has to go through the entire bureaucracy of getting the approval